Flood Time Paths, 4990 BC. The flood began in 4990 BC. This was a very significant year in history because the whole world was destroyed except Noah and his family. Let's take a look at some time paths. But first, let's examine the number 1000 and its spiritual meaning. The number 1000 in the Bible has to do with completeness. Christ owns the cattle upon 1,000 hills. Psalms 50:10. The 1000 means all, or the completeness of all the hills in the world. Let's start by going 3,000 years from the flood. 3 is the purpose of God, and 1,000 is completeness. So the complete purpose of God. This is where the pattern begins. The flood occurred when the earth was 6,023 years old, which was 4990 BC. Keep this in the back of your mind. If you go 3,000 years from the flood, 4990 BC plus 3,000, you land on 1990 BC, when Jacob and Esau were both 17 years old. The earth is 9,023 years old at this point in time. If you go 4,000 years from the flood, 4990 BC plus 4,000, you land on 990 BC, David's 17th accession year of reigning as king. The earth is now 10,023 years old. If you go 5,000 years from the flood, 4990 BC plus 5,000, you land on 11 AD, when Christ was 17 years old. The earth is now 11,023 years old. Now that we're in the 11,000th era of Earth's history at this point in time, let's take a look at a Bible passage. In the Bible, Judas Iscariot, who was the 12th apostle, hung himself after betraying Christ. This left a remainder of 11 apostles. Acts 1:26. And they gave forth their lots, and the lot fell upon Matthias, and he was numbered with the 11 apostles. Here we see another apostle replace Judas, named Matthias. But then one more apostle was added, bringing the total to 13 apostles. 1 Corinthians 15:8. And last of all he was seen of me also, as of one born out of due time. Take notice, it says, as of one born out of due time. This is a veiled reference to the fact that something should have happened in the 12,000th era of Earth's history, since that was the next millennial. And God established a pattern where a major event occurs every 1,000 years. However, since Paul was the 13th apostle and born out of due time, 12 is skipped and 13 becomes the focal point. The 12th apostle is no longer in view, but the 13th. Paul was being used by God to typify the 13,000th year of human history, and a picture of the elect living at the time of the end. For I am the least of the apostles, that am not meet to be called an apostle, because I persecuted the church of God. Paul was the 13th apostle, so we went from 11 apostles to 13 apostles. With this idea in mind, from the 11,023rd year, we're going to skip going 1,000 years to the 12,023rd year, or going 6,000 years from the flood, and instead, if you go 7,000 years from the flood, 4990 BC plus 7,000, you land on 2011 AD, when Judgment Day began, and it was the 17th year of the latter rain, which completed the salvation of all of God's elect around the world. The earth is now 13,023 years old. So in conclusion, we see the number 17 is playing a very important role with this pattern. Starting 3,000 years from the flood, when the pattern begins, every 1,000-year jump is landing on the 17th year of some event. The 1,000-year jumps landing on the 17th year is signifying completeness. The 17th year of each of the prior events mentioned lands on the completion of a millennial jump, which means the last 17 years prior to each new millennial is important. However, if we take the number 23, which is the number for tribulation or judgment in the Bible, and attach it to the 17 years, we get a full 40 years. In other words, the 23 years added to 17 serves to fill up and complete a 40-year period. 40 in the Bible is the number for testing. The Israelites were tested 40 years in the wilderness. Jesus was tempted for 40 days. God used Jonah to give a 40-day warning to Nineveh. These are just some of many examples. 17 and 23 can serve as dividing points in a 40-year period. Therefore, we can see a very definite number pattern that God has established in the Bible. Okay, let's look at it this way. If we go 2,983 years from the flood, this lands on Jacob's birth in 2007 BC. Add the 17 years to reach the millennial mark of 3,000 years, when Jacob and Esau turned 17 in 1990 BC, then attach the 23 years to fill up the 40 years, and we land on 1967 BC, when they both turned 40 years old. Esau is a picture of the unsaved. He fails the test by marrying strange wives. Likewise, if we do the same with 3,983 years from the flood, this lands on David's first year of reigning as king in 1007 BC. Add the 17 years to reach the millennial mark of 4,000 years from the flood, David's 17th year reigning as king in 990 BC, then attach the 23 years to fill up the 40 years of his total reign, and we land on 967 BC, when David completes his 40-year reign as king and dies, and also when Solomon lays the foundation of the temple. Likewise, if we do the same with 4,983 years from the flood, this lands on Christ's birth in 7 BC, add the 17 years to reach the millennial mark of 5,000 years from the flood, Christ is 17 years old in 11 AD, then attach the 23 inclusive years, 22 actual, to fill up the 40 years, and we land on 33 AD, when Christ dies on the cross and resurrects along with many bodies of the saints that slept. We skip the pattern for the 12,000th era. Finally, if we do the same with 6,983 years from the flood, this lands on 1994 AD, the beginning of the latter rain period, when judgment officially begins on all churches worldwide. Add the 17 years of the latter rain to reach the millennial mark of 7,000 years from the flood. That's when Judgment Day begins in 2011 AD. Then attach the 23 inclusive years, 22 actual, to fill up the 40 years, and we land on 2033 AD, the end of Judgment Day, the resurrection and rapture of the elect, and the complete end of this world. You'll also notice the following. If we attach 4,000 calendar years to 1967 BC, it lands on 2033. Esau failed the test by marrying strange wives. Unsaved mankind fails the test exactly 4,000 years later. If we attach another 3,000 calendar years to 967 BC, it lands on 2033. The 3,000-year anniversary of when Solomon laid the temple foundation, and when David, a type and figure of Christ, dies. If we attach another 2,000 years to 33 AD, it lands on 2033, the 2,000-year anniversary of when Christ dies and resurrects. Much biblical evidence, including this video, is showing 2033 to be the resurrection and rapture of all of God's elect.